set on both platforms. Okay, what's up? Good morning. Happy Thursday, everybody. Dr. Jeff Moore here, currently serving as the CEO of ICE, lead faculty member for cervical and lumbar spine divisions. Thrilled to be with you on a Thursday morning. Good to see everybody. Really hope everybody is healthy and doing what they can to stay that way. So thinking of all of you as we go through some crazy times together. So it is Leadership Thursday, which means it is Gut Check Thursday, right? So our gut check, nice and simple. We know a lot of folks don't have access to equipment this week. So trying to give you something, a nice quick stimulus that you can get out there and get after it. So it's going to be 3 rounds per time, 400-meter run, 30 air squats, 15 push-ups, right? So one big lap around the track, knock out 30 air squats, knock out 15 push-ups, repeat 3 times, and your time is your score. So 3 rounds per time, get out there and enjoy that. All right, so Leadership Thursday, before we jump in, I know a lot of you have been trying to get into our online courses. Many of you have been unable to make it to a live course. We have canceled all of our live courses for 30 days, even some of you looking back beyond that. We're doing our best to shuffle things around to make that accessible. So in our clinical management of the fitness athlete pregnancy and postpartum course, so for those of you who want to work with postpartum mothers, kind of getting back to fitness, returning to the box into functional maneuvers, Christina and Kelsey were able to grab Alexis Morgan. So we have more faculty for that course, so you can jump into that class. It's still available on the website. Persistent pain comprehensive management, shoot us an email if you want to jump into there. Justin's got a few spots he made available for you. Modern management of the older adult essential foundation started yesterday. You can still jump into that class, and out of network step by step is coming up in a week or two with Sarah Heron. So all of those are available online courses for those of you who are looking to engage in that space. And I am aware via my email inbox that there are many of you. So hopefully that creates some opportunity. All right, so Leadership Thursday. I want to chat about this phenomenon of creating an environment for failing above the line, because I think it separates leaders in a very foundational way. And I think the first thing we have to all admit is that everybody wants a positive resolution, right? In all interactions in life. Like you want, I don't care if it's a song, you want that home chord to come back at the end, right? You want, when you're working with someone, to be able to pat them on the back and say, boy, it got tough in there, but way to rise up and overcome it. Like, we naturally desire that resolution. You don't want to be a part of the clinical experience where the student ultimately failed, right? You don't want to fail somebody on a practical, which means they have to repeat the course. Nobody wants to cut somebody from the team. Like, just naturally, we're adverse to some of that discomfort, right? But it's really interesting to think about why and to truly unpack that. Because there's a number of reasons, right? I think that many folks think that the primary reason that we don't want to undergo these challenging circumstances is because we don't want to disappoint the other individual, right? Which I think is sometimes a piece of it. I mean, I think, again, that comes down to kind of human nature. But I would argue when you drill down, the reason is we don't want to deal with the aftermath, the negative sequela or the aftermath. I say that because if you think about it, all things considered, educators, coaches, owners, you name it, they all want to hold a high bar. They want to hold a high bar, right? If they knew that when they told someone that they weren't meeting the standard, that the response was going to be, coach, you're right, or boss, you're right. Like, I didn't get the job done. I could have done better. I should have done better. I'm going to do better. If the individual delivering the bad news expected to be greeted with that response, what we would call a failing above the line response, the vast majority of leaders would hold the standard every time, right? But, right, what we are often encountered with is a below the line failure, which means that when you deliver the bad news, it gets ugly. Right? Where you get rebuttals, right? You get arguments, you get accusations. Hey, you didn't tell me to study that, right? Yet it was on the exam. Hey, I didn't know that was my job, right? And yet you're busting my chops for not having done it, right? What we get is fire back. And those are the things that everybody wants to avoid, right? You wind up being the teacher that nobody likes. You wind up being the boss that nobody wants to work for, that has a bad name, right? Those are the things that we tend to fear, that really are the driver for us not wanting to have these uncomfortable conversations, because we naturally want to hold the line and would if we did not expect that kind of response. But we do expect that response, so we don't. Okay, this is the biggest difference between leaders, right? Great leaders will hold the standard more often because they have created an environment where above the line failures are the norm. Weak leaders, poor leaders, routinely soften the standard, right? They give extra credit. They curve the exam, right? They do whatever they do so that the person, even though they didn't meet the standard, can get by because they fear the below the line failure, the rebuttal, the arguments, etc. You know this is true intrinsically because if you think back to who the best leaders were in your life, it's usually the hard coaches, right? Like you think back to the people that were quote unquote hard on you, that were your best leaders. They were hard on you. They expected a ton out of you. These were your best leaders, right? The reason they were able to do that was because they had earned your respect over time. And they knew that when they were hard on you, there was going to be an above the line response because your relationship was above the line. Right? You knew that they knew that you were going to say, Coach, you're right. I'm frustrated. I didn't want to receive that news. But at the end of the day, you're right. I've got to do better. They had somehow fostered a relationship with you where they could be hard on you, hold you to that high standard, and expect an above the line response. That difference is everything in team building, in life, right? If you think about it, only those coaches, those leaders, those teachers, those bosses, whatever, only those people can build truly great companies long term because only they will hold the standard because they know they can. Everybody else is necessarily going to let the standard erode in order to keep the peace. So if you want the standards held long term, really only those leaders who create those environments have the possibility to do it. And certainly only those leaders are able to get the best out of their people because the lower you put the bar, the less the individual has to jump to get over it. Every time you erode the standard because you're afraid of that negative sequela, every time you lower it, you're literally getting less out of every single person who's following you or works for you. So if you can't maintain the high bar, you can't create great teams, and you certainly can't create or maximize potential from any given individual. Thus, it is the ability, because you foster those environments where above the line responses are expected, that you can hold the bar, that you can create great teams. If you really boil it all the way down, that is a lot of where great leadership comes from. So the necessary question follows. How? What is it? What is it about those coaches who are hard on you, yet you respected the heck out of? What is it about those professors who got the absolute most out of your intellectual talent? What is it about them and how do they create it? I really think it comes down to a couple very simple things that create environments where above the line responses are the norm and thus holding standards high is permissible. Number one is that expectation is everything. The more I teach, the more I realize the truth in that statement. Expectation is everything. Verbalizing very directly, very early, what you are expecting, what it looks like, right? What excellence is going to be envisioned as. Expectation. Think about taking your next student, right? And your opportunity on the front end to let them know exactly what you're expecting. Here is what I'm going to need out of you. Here is how it's going to be measured. Here's my role in that. Here's your role in that. Here are all the expectations communicated very directly. Think if you do that with every new hire. Here is exactly what we're expecting. Here's our benchmarks. Here's our grading process. Here's what you can expect. Here's what I'll deliver. Here's what I need. The reason that expectation is so critical is because it is your chance to communicate very, very directly when emotion isn't running high. When emotion isn't running high. Because realize if you try to explain what you expect Once you've encountered difficulty and emotions are flowing, the ability for that to be clearly received is extraordinarily limited. An ounce of prevention is always worth a pound of cure. You can't judge accurately what you never asked for clearly. If you're going to take something away from this section, take that away. You can't judge accurately what you've never asked for clearly. If you and the other individual don't know what the expectation is, there's no way to judge that accurately and fairly. Expectations, everything. If you're teaching a class, before that class starts, laying out the expectations for your co-faculty, laying out the expectations for your new hire, laying out the expectations for your kids, right? It doesn't matter for your team. In every venue, it's before the event starts, the lion's share of the work is done. If you want to be somebody who fosters above the line failures, which, as I explained earlier, I think is one of the key differentiating factors of exceptional leadership. Okay, number two, these kind of feed off each other, right? But number two comes off number one, but it's that you embrace small early failures as opportunities for clarity in learning. Okay, so if you've done a good job setting expectations, when those expectations aren't met, right, especially early on, small things, not huge things, right, early things you're seeing that you're like, oh, that did not achieve the standard, right? These are the moments where you have to encourage reflection and you have to get more clarity on resources. Okay, so number one, encouraging reflection. Okay, do you see why that didn't meet the standard? So here's your chance to engage with that new employee, with that student, etc. Hey, hold on. Do you see here why what you did didn't meet the standard, right? I see it, or at least from my side of the rock or from my viewpoint, I see it. Do you see it, right? This allows that person to say, no, I don't see why you're saying I failed right there. Okay, this is a good example that you did not lay out your expectations clearly. Whether you think you did or not is not the point. At this part of the process, they did not understand what you were asking for. Great chance right here to then reiterate. Okay, I apologize, right? I did not lay out the expectations properly. Let me make sure it's clear. Now do you understand it? So using these early failures, these early mistakes as a chance to get clarity for both of you on whether or not the expectations are understood. Now, right behind that, now that you understand what I need, now that we're clear on that, do you have what you need to be successful? Or are there additional resources that I need to provide? Are there things on my end? What's my 100%? Are there things that I need to be providing to make sure this doesn't happen again? These are the moments when you allow for that reflection, the additional clarity, and your chance to provide resources that when ultimate failure happens, if unfortunately it sometimes does, you can now both look back and say, Coach, you gave me everything I needed. I mean, you even clarified at each point if there was things that you weren't doing that were making it impossible for me to be successful. That's what creates above the line failure, because the individual says, it's not on you. It's not on you. You were trying to do your 100%. You repeatedly asked me if there were things that you needed to do as part of this process so we could be successful. I had the tools, I just didn't get the job done. I understood exactly what you were asking of me. I had everything that I needed. Ultimately, Coach, this is on me. In those environments, you don't have to drop the standard because you foster a space and a relationship that allowed for that above the line response. That individual is going to go back and do better. They are going to get the most out of themselves. And you as a leader facilitated that because your expectations were clear and you used early failures as points for reflection on both of your sides and the ability to provide additional resources if needed. So that when it was all said and done, that was the way that you parted ways or went back to the drawing board. The third piece envelopes all of this. And once you lose this, you lose everything. That is, you have to maintain the hierarchy. Think about the cool parent, right? Everybody had this person in town, right? That your buddy who had the really cool mom or dad who let everything slide, right? Who allowed parties at their house, right? But everybody loved him when things were good, But when things had to shift into high gear, when things got serious, when challenges were met, that parent had no leverage, not only with their own kids, right, but with other kids in the community, because they were the cool parent. Like, hey, I thought we were friends, Susie. Right, I thought we were buds. Right, when you're buds, right, it's really hard to be stern. So in these moments, when you have those students, friendly is great. Friendship, right, can erode hierarchy early on. Now, it's always expected that as the years go on, as people elevate up to levels of being collegial, of course those barriers are supposed to erode because now you're equals. But early on, the new employee, the student relationship, those hierarchies need to be established and maintained. The parenting environment, right? Until that kid is old enough to be on the same level. Hierarchy allows for discipline. Discipline allows you in those environments where above the line leadership has been fostered to create demands that get the best out of the people who are following you. Once the hierarchy is gone, it's all gone. Those are the three things. As I study the leaders of my life, and I spend a fair amount of time doing this because it fascinates me how some people are able to get so much out of others. Those three things jump out at me. The expectations are clearly laid. Here's what success would look like. If you do A, then B, right? Here are the when emotions are not running high, expectations are clearly laid out. An ounce of prevention. Every day, do not wait until hard news has to be delivered. Have already laid a trail months ahead of that time that allow that news to be productive, not just emotional. Once emotions are running high, none of this groundwork can be laid. Number two, the small failures are your opportunity for clarity and for resource delivery. You want early failures. That's the whole point. And if expectations were laid out clearly, those early failures can resonate or meditate on those expectations. Hey, John, I don't think you met the grade here, man. But do you see that? Do you see why I see an asymmetry between what was expected and what happened? If you don't, tell me so I can clarify what I expect out of you. By the way, now that you get it, do you have everything that you need to be successful? Because I don't want you to ultimately be unsuccessful and feel it was because you didn't have the tools. Let's get that right now. Expectations and using early failure on top of maintaining hierarchy allow you to be that leader that years from now people look back on and say, oh man, that guy or gal was a bear, but they made me who I am today. People don't say those things when you give them extra credit and curve their exam. They say those things when you don't give them a pass, when you hold their feet to the fire, when you're willing to walk through the discomfort because you know the respect has been established that creates above the line failures. You become the person that can change somebody else's life. Don't let people off easy. There's too much that happening in the world, but foster a relationship that allows the challenges to be met respectfully. This is the best. When it comes down leader to leader, the people that I look at as being exceptional are the ones that hold other people's feet to the fire because they've created an environment that enables them to do so. And this is how that happens. I hope that makes sense. Hit me up with some feedback. Let me know about those folks in your life who were so demanding, but all along the while you knew it was fair because they met these criteria. Better yet, be that person for the individuals coming behind you. More than ever right now, folks, we need tremendous leadership. Right? Think about what these principles are and try and execute in daily life because everyone's looking around right now for folks to step up. Be that person. All right, folks, have as good of a Thursday as you can have. For those of you missing clinic, I think that speaks volumes to how much you care about what you do. I know it's tough that we're all out right now. We're on pause. But as they say, right, when the fishermen can't be at sea, they mend the nets. Figure out what your nets are. Right? What can you work on right now so in a month or two when this thing gets by and we're on the other side, we can come forth with a product that's better than ever. Do right now in these moments of heightened emotion what can be productive later. Hang in there, team. Reach out if you need us. All right, cheers.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.